Konnichiwa minaboku wa Jeremy desu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. And it only took me a year, but I finally sat down and watched Sailor Moon Super S musical Amour Eternal, which was last year's musical, 2016. Now, there's several reasons that I was putting off watching this one, and I actually watched I have the official release, of course, but it doesn't have subtitles. I watched the version that Miss Dream fan subs, and they'll actually be working on the Sailor Stars one, which is coming out this year. So I figured I'd have to catch up with it and see what it was all like. Now, this musical, I wasn't really sure what to expect. The Super S season traditionally is not a favorite one of mine, or of a lot of people in general. So, I mean, it basically was all about Chibiusa, and ain't nobody really give a shit about Chibiusa. So, but I'm just kidding. Some people do. I don't. But the thing is, I was going through a bit of a depression earlier this year, and well, I guess it kind of extended back into last year, and I just didn't have the passion to want to even watch the musical and do my review and stuff like that. But I finally did, and I took notes, and it was very long, and it was 2 hours and 23 minutes. So I have about 16 minutes to try to get through this video before it'll like splice really weird. So let's get down to it, shall we? So again, it was Amour Eternal, which means eternal love, basically, and this is the one where we get a brand new cast of the inner Senshi. So Hotaru is the new moon, and that's the name of the actress, and there's many, many others. Yuga Yamato returns as Tuxedo Command. The outers are all the same, I think, except Saturn, and it's interesting. It's all over the place. So, there's one of the things I don't like about this, and I was really unsure how they were going to do it. I like it and I don't like it. It harbors back to the original Sailor Moon Super S musical that they did back in 1994-95. I think that was when, or 95-96. I think those were the ones. And that one was great because it had like Pegasus as a laser light show. I don't think there was an actual person playing Helios. And that's how, well, Helios, because they have the H silent, and I always thought it was Helios, but it's Helios, I guess. I liked it, but I didn't like it. The feather lighting was really neat, the fact that they had the wings, and then, you know, Helios was, like, dancing, interpretive dancing, and couldn't talk at first until Chibiusa accidentally touched his mane, and then he was all of a sudden able to talk. It was weird. It was a little all over the place, and this one, compared to the other musicals, seemed to kind of take elements from the original Super S musical and the manga and the anime and kind of splice them all together in a really awkward kind of a show, which is fine. I mean, it kind of worked, but La Reconquista, Petite Étrangère, and Un Nouveau Voyage were kind of newish in their way of doing things, but also following the manga more. This one was all over the place, which was still kind of neat. Now, the writer for this was the same writer of the Super S musicals, of the Anza stage, I believe, and so kind of grabbed a bunch of the stuff from there, and that's why it kind of got recycled a little bit. So, interpretive dance, it felt silly to me that Chibiusa's up there narrating what's going on. Oh, I understand what you're saying. You mean this, this, this. It was almost like a Family Guy joke in some ways, and I couldn't help but laugh. But anyway, I really like the immersive projection of the dreams of the girls, like when they're singing their songs about their dreams, and you see in them, because they use that moon screen, it's a big circle, and it's all pre-recorded, and they're dancing and singing, and it was actually really, really neat. They did that kind of similarly in La Reconquista, and I don't remember if they did it in the other ones as much. Minako sings her dream live, which totally stands in character with her, but I would have to say I really miss Ryuji Kasahara as Tiger's Eye and Ono Hikari as Hawk's Eye, although of the three of the new actresses that play Tiger's Eye, Hawkeye, and Fisheye, a lot of people that I've read online say that Tiger's Eye stands out the most of them, but really for me it's Fisheye. I think that Fisheye is the most emotive, the most silliest, but the most stage presence of all of them, followed by Tiger's Eye and then Hawk's Eye, but they do really well. Yuga Yamato is kind of a, I don't know, I have the unpopular opinion here. I personally think that she's a little bit overhyped. I mean, she does a really good job as Tuxedo Command, but I feel the hype is a little too much. Like, she always gets ovations and stuff from people when she comes on stage or whenever, and it feels like the others kind of get left out in their deserving of getting a hand, like applause and stuff. But I understand where it's coming from in some ways, and I know she's got quite the fan following, and I assume that she's wearing high-heeled boots to kind of give the illusion that Mamoru is taller. Like, throughout the whole musical, it's like high-heeled boots. The girls are amazing, and this, what am I saying? Oh, the girls are amazing as they stand still perfectly when Zirconia first appears and starts singing, and everybody else is dancing around them. Like, I'm watching them, I'm like, holy crap, that's some pretty darn good acting there. They're just standing there like complete statues, barely even moving. You can kind of see it, but still, it's not that bad. And I love the in-joke when the Amazon trio are kind of sitting at the cafe and they're talking about what their type of person is that they'll go for. And Hawkeye is like, oh, I'm a man that likes girls. And Fish Eye's like, well, I'm a man that likes men. And they're like, Tiger's Eye, what do you think? And Tiger's Eye's like, oh, well, I'm a woman, or no, I'm kind of a female actress playing a man that likes women. And it was like a gender fluid. They actually had a talk about kind of gender fluid and what people can identify as, and I thought that was really neat that they went with Tiger's Eye over Fish Eye on that. So that one was really, really neat. And of course the Amazon trio realized early on that they don't really have dreams, because they're all trying to figure out, they're like, oh, well, what's your dream, and what's your dream? And they all realize, they're like, well, we don't actually know what a dream is. After Chibiusa touches Pegasus's mane, as I mentioned, that's when he can kind of talk to her in her dreams at first, but not like in reality until a little bit later on. Nehalenia, some of the ways that she's walking, the way her costume is, kind of makes her look a little bit pregnant, which is weird. But she has an amazing voice, kind of akin to Kakyu in the Stars musicals, and Heian Densetsu and Kaguya Shin... No, which one? The later one, in 2003. The other Stars musical. I can't think of the name of it right now, because it's after midnight and I'm tired. Minako thinks that Rei and Tiger's Eye are making out, and the way they do the dream mirror thing is really kind of creepy, because, you know, it's like just open the shirt and looking in the chest, and it's just, it kind of reminded me of a time back when I was in acting in college, and there was a scene I had to do something similar to that to a lady, and it was just really funny. That was the first thing that popped into my head, but it was really awkward in some ways. And then when the girls are like, they're like, no, check my dream, and it just seemed really unnecessarily sexualized in some ways, maybe because my mind is always in the gutter. I don't know. When Hawkeye is looking at their dreams and looks into Makoto's and sees that she wants to be like a homemaker and cake maker and all this stuff, she's like, well, that's girly dreams for a big broad like you. I'm like, wow, it's so different, you know. All the girls want the Amazons to look in their dreams again. I already said that. Hawkeye thinks that Rei is the leader, and that's when it kind of clicks with Minako. She's like, well, wait a minute, no, I'm the leader, but they don't really agree with her on that. And so we get Shiratsuki Gonin Musume, which of course is the version that's on the Amour Eternal album, the live version of that, and which is also the reason why Venus's part is cut out, because they're doing their song. They basically beat all of the bad guys, and then when Minako goes to sing, or Venus, she gets cut off because they're like, well, the battle's kind of already over, and she's like, oh, but I want to sing, and so that's, now I've got some kind of context as to why that was like that. I thought maybe she was talked to by villains. I don't know, but this Jupiter is very different. She's not as gruff and physical as the previous actress that played Jupiter, so for me it was kind of a little bit jarring. And I guess she's still pretty good. Like the movements are really fluid and stuff, but she doesn't have that power that previous Jupiter had. And I'm hoping in the Stars one that it'll come out a little bit more. The little sound effects that they have add a really neat little effect to it as well. And this Usagi, so Hotaru, I find actually sings better in some ways than Satomi Moon did. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that because a lot of people think that it's the opposite way. But she actually she has way better vocal control, especially after doing a lot of movement and stuff. And when she and Yuga, or Tuxedo Command and Sailor Moon, sing When Destiny Calls, which again is not a favorite song of mine, I actually didn't mind this version as much. And she harmonizes a little bit better with Yuga in that, and that's just something as a singer myself, I picked up on. Venus herself feels insignificant as a leader. It doesn't help that Mercury and Mars are kind of talking about how they wish the outer senshi were there to help them, and it kind of makes Venus feel self-conscious, and she does in the manga too. But it's different because she's the last one to get her new power up, and that's another glaring thing missing from this musical, is that they don't have the Amazon trio there to help the inners get their new powers like they did in the original manga, but then again you also don't have the Amazon quartet, so the trio's position is lengthened a lot longer than it was in the manga, which basically only lasted like a chapter and a half each, or something to that effect, if memory recalls. But Tiger's Eye is obsessed with Rei, just like in the manga, just like and so on. So they have the black blood motif, which you can tell early on links Mamoru and Helios. I'm never going to get used to that. Helios. Just going to go like that. And so you know that they're connected, and it kind of builds up there. Helios, of course, is the head priest of Elysian, and I always used to think it was like Illusion or whatever. They called it Elysian in the Cloverway English dub. Neharenia invaded Elysian, whatever, and its power to protect the Earth disappeared, so that's why the dead moon was able to invade during the solar eclipse. So there's that explanation right there. Chibiusa is upset after she realizes that it's actually Usagi that Helios was trying to get to through her. And so she feels really upset. And then you kind of have like what would have been the double Moonlight Romance kind of song from the original musicals, but it's a completely different song. You have Usagi and Mamoru on one side of the bed. You have Helios and Chibiusa doing their little thing, but it's not really a romantic song so much. It kind of is. And then you get the scene with the Outers, and you see some funny banter with them, and I thought it was adorable, actually. Setsuna is like the homemaker, the doorbell's ringing. It's kind of like a comedy type thing, and it's to lighten the mood. And I mean, the original story of the Dream Arc was kind of dark, but the fact that it's juxtaposed with a circus, which is kind of meant to be silly. A lot of people give them flack for this one's really, really silly compared to the previous ones and stuff. It works because of the whole circus thing. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be entertaining. So having this little part here breaks up that darkness of it, and it kind of keeps things going, especially since there's children in the audience. You have to remember that too. So Setsuna is doing her little thing, trying to make everything perfect, and then Haruka and Michiru come back, and you've got the whole gruff Haruka and the very, very elegant Michiru, and it's a great trio to have. And then of course Hotaru comes out, and she's completely, well, not completely grown. She's like a teenager-esque, a little bit older than Chibiusa, and so the Outers are like, oh well, we don't have our power anymore. We felt this presence. We had to try to transform, but we couldn't. And so they're like, oh, maybe our princess abandoned us. And Hotaru's like, no, I'm basically going to give you your powers. And so here we go. It was kind of similar to how the first episode, or first or second episode of Sailor Stars went, with Hotaru basically presenting them their new power crystals. So then the Outers transform. Oh wait. Okay, where am I here? So the mirrors appear, and they focus on Mercury with this, and again they do with the projection thing, which I thought was really neat, pre-recorded stuff, and having the actresses having Mercury time it so that she's kind of moving in sync with her reflection behind her until it gets up, and Hawkeye is in there too, and you can tell that Hawkeye is pulling the strings. Making Mercury second guess herself, and then the others kind of second guess themselves, and then the Outers arrive. They do a transformation thing, or at least you see their shadows in the projection behind the mirrors, and they transform, and there they are. And so then they do a song. It's Celestial celestial form, I think, is the start of it. But it's an ensemble song that seems to go on for about approximately 10 minutes, if I had to guess. And in that time, Usagi figures out that the golden crystal is inside of Mamoru, just like the silver crystal was inside of her in the manga, and in previous incarnations they called it the Barazuishu. They did not say that in this one. It was just the golden crystal. The Barazuishu means rose crystal anyway, or if you were talking about Yaoi and Bara, well, it's a whole different ball game, but we're not going to go there. So then you have as the battle song is going on, which basically brings all of the entire cast together, you have Sailor Uranus versus Tiger's Eye, Neptune versus Hawk's Eye, and then strangely Mercury versus Fish Eye. But anyway, then that's pretty much the end song of Act 1. They're building everything up as they normally would, and then you get the intermission, which is fantastic. And so in the version that I have, of course it's subtitled and stuff, the intermission kind of gets cut down a little bit, and then you get the Amazon Trio coming out on stage. And when they do, it's really neat that they're hyping up the audience and getting them ready, and I thought this was a neat little bit of banter because it was their last show in Osaka. So they'll tend to throw in little bits here and there, and I kind of have a feeling that that's what they did with Tiger's Eye as well, talking about being gender fluid and things. I don't know if they did that in the other ones, but so Fish Eye and Tiger's Eye are kind of the main people talking, and they're going around the audience like, oh, who has beautiful dreams, who has beautiful dreams, and they spot a foreigner in the audience and they start speaking in English. What is your beautiful dream? And you can clearly hear him say, more Sailor Moon musicals. And Tiger's Eye is like, oh, more Sailor Moon musicals, thank you, in English. And I thought that was really neat. And then they went and talked to another person and talking about a closing ceremony. And then they kind of went into how this was the last show, and then Zirconia comes out and says that this is the last time Zirconia is going to get to sing a song, and sings it to Zircon. But then Fisheye says that he needs to talk to Zirconia and find out why they don't have dreams, because Fisheye was trying to look in Tiger's Eye? Yeah, Tiger's Eye's mirror, and realize that there's no dreams in there. And of course Zirconia then explains, well, you're animals, but if you want to become actual humans, you need to help get Sailor Moon's silver crystal. So, okay. Everlasting human forms with the Ginsuishu. Okay. So then you get the show actually starting again, and it's in the circus tent. And you have a bunch of circus acts. Now, I kind of miss the old Super S musical circus acts that they were doing. These ones were pretty neat too, just like with the auditions that the girls were doing. They were pretty neat. I really liked the lighted hoops part, where they're like flying around on the darkened stage and you could see them all colored, and I'm pretty sure they were LED lights or something, and it was just really, really well done. But then the Senshi stopped the show, and then they sing Koisuru Satellite. And now Helios gets captured, and Neharenia is like, oh, I'm going to help you see your true form. Now, in the original Super S musicals that they did, this is where Hotaru came in. They were controlling Hotaru and the dark power inside of her. So she was the one that was releasing all the nightmares and stuff. But it makes more sense that it would be Helios that would be doing this, because they explain later on, Helios takes all the nightmares inside of him and then releases them as dreams back into people. That's pretty good, darn smart. I like that little story throw in there. Tuxedo Command arrives and reaches out to Helios, who is now like this dark creature type thing, again doing the interpretive dance and stuff like that. And because it's always a dance, just like one of my favorite things is how when they would come to fight Galaxia and like La Moon would be playing, or I guess Neharenia in the original one, La Moon would be playing, and that's like their dance off, and they're like, you know, like they're fighting, and it's funny. I love that it's a dance off. Kind of ties in with Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, the live action series back in 2004, but not as cheesy, but still. So this is where it's all explained, and then Mamoru, or Tuxedo Command, basically demands that Helios release the power of the darkness inside of him, and he's like, I won't die, just do it. This is a command. Now this whole little story chunk of Helios absorbing the nightmares and releasing them as dreams is quite the illusion, or alluding to Galaxia, and what Galaxia does, and pulls chaos inside of her body, and of course then chaos starts to poison her from the inside out, and that's why the evil is there. So Tuxedo Command again orders this, and then basically dies because of it, but releases Helios because now he's free of all the darkness and stuff, and becomes pure again. because of Tuxedo Command dying, the golden crystal appears, and then Neharenia promptly steals it, and in Chibiusa disappears, and fun is had by all, and we hear the Sailor Stars commercial music, which is happy, just like it was before, except that I'm just totally making that up. But that's one of my favorite scenes in Sailor Stars, is when Chibiusa disappears in the anime, and then you get that really happy Sailor Stars music. Sailor Stars, the bitch is gone. I'm a horrible person. Anyways, so as this is going on, Zirconia demands that the Amazon trio grab the silver crystal, and Fisheye's like, well, wait, what guarantee do we have that this is going to actually turn us human? We don't have dreams. Does that truly make us human? And basically, because Fisheye is going against Zirconia, Fisheye is killed by Zirconia. And that really makes Tiger's Eye and Hawk's Eye think for a minute. But then Zirconia orders them to attack the others, and then they end up having a fight. And for whatever reason, they're still fighting with the Senshi. So Tiger's Eye, Music of the Spheres plays, which is my favorite song of the new Sailor Moon musicals, as well as Eye of the Storm, but that was in Nouveau Voyage. Tiger's Eye and Hawk's Eye basically sacrifice themselves by grabbing Zirconia, and they let Sailor Moon destroy Zirconia, and then basically they mention that they wish that they could return as full humans. Now, in the anime, of course, Helios, or Pegasus, grants them a wish and lets them go to Elysian to live out as humans. Essentially, that's what you're made to believe. And then the quartet would take over, but they're not in this one. So Sailor Moon realizes that she has to jump into Neharenia's mirror and to go after her and fight her. And this is where we get a really neat, unexpected story that's kind of what happened in the manga. It's where you harken back to when Serenity was born, Princess Serenity, but what was really weird was that Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus were already older, and I don't know, it just seemed really, really odd, because they're all supposed to be roughly around the same age, but again, it's that whole thing of them not really aging anyway, kind of like in Crystal Tokyo in the future, so whatever, kind of throw continuity out the window, but that's fine. So then you get this whole, and I've always thought about this as a Sleeping Beauty story. It really is, because you have Sleeping Beauty that's born, and then you have the Dark Witch that comes in, and then she's like, oh, I'm going to put a curse on this because Neharenia basically lives on the dark side of the moon, and she is the antithesis of Queen Serenity. Whenever there's light, there's dark. And she points out that the light is actually evil to the dark side, because whenever there's light, it kills the dark. And so she's kind of right on that. So they end up having this battle, and Queen Serenity basically uses the silver crystal to get rid of Queen Neharenia and put her in the mirror. And so Neharenia basically puts the curse that the Moon Kingdom will fall and the princess will take her life. And that is the catalyst for Queen Beryl. Booyah! There you go. It comes full circle. So, Neharenia gives the gift of the kingdom falling, blah, 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 it's a curse, and there we go. So, now here's something else that I realized, and I kind of realized this throughout the whole thing, and I'm way over 16 minutes, so this is going to be a long video, I apologize. But Hotaru Moon, the new actress playing Sailor Moon, she's not very emotive with her face, like Satomi was. Satomi was really, really good at this. She kind of fits the role of Sailor Moon really well in some ways, but whenever she's trying to show like sadness or fear or happiness or anything, it's like the same face. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like Wallace and Gromit, you know, like the teeth are showing and the whole mouth like this, and it just looks really, really creepy. It's like a creepy half smile when she's supposed to be upset, and it's odd. So Neharenia takes the silver crystal, making Sailor Moon think that her friends are dead. So like the Remelis, I always call it lemurs, but it's Remelis, or whatever the fuck they're called. The nightmares surround Sailor Moon, and the essentially aren't dead. They're like calling out to her, but Neharenia's like, oh, she can't hear you, blah, blah, blah. And she takes the silver crystal, and then they're all upset because they think that it's all for naught, and they give up quite easily. And then Saturn stands up, and my initial reaction was that she was going to use Silence Glaive's Surprise, which in the anime would have destroyed the world, but really we know that that's Death Ribbon Revolution that does that, because earlier on she used Silence Glaive's Surprise, which was just an offensive attack. like Death Ribbon Revolution is in Sailor Moon Another Story. So I don't know which attack actually is supposed to destroy the world. It depends on what media you're dealing with here. But we know that Silence Wall is a protector, but she didn't use that one. So nothing happens at first when Saturn stands up and she's like, no, we need to give our power to Sailor Moon. And they do this big song thing and they all give their power to her. Nothing happens at first, and then Nehadenia tries to use the crystals, but she can't. And then you see Sailor Moon stir. And she's like, well, of course you can't, because you have to give birth. And it was a weird choice of words. Maybe it was in the translation. I gave birth to the silver crystal. Mamoru gave birth to the golden crystal, so only we can control it. But it's funny because the two silver crystals were going to be put together by the Dark Moon family. Black Moon family. Yes, Black Moon family. Too many references to Moon. And so that would have destroyed everything, but Nehadenia, who actually lived on the moon as well, I don't know. Again, continuity, let's just throw it out the door. So, nothing happens at first, and then Sailor Moon gets up, and she controls the crystal, silver crystal. She's like, please release your power, which it does. And then she's like, can you please also release the golden crystal's power, which it does. And everyone's suddenly alive, and then Tuxedo Mask appears, and yay! So now all of a sudden she get together, and Nehadenia is like, oh shit. And now this is neat, because I noticed this right away. Hotaru Moon runs off stage, and the girl that was playing Queen Serenity, as near as I could figure, is the double, like the body double for Hotaru Moon or Sailor Moon, because so she's Queen Serenity during that flashback sequence, and it's kind of sad they didn't get the original one to come back, like from La Reconquista, but maybe she was busy, I don't know. She was wonderful, she could sing beautifully. The new one could sing pretty well too, but it was weird. So Hotaru Moon goes off stage, and you see Sailor Moon's standing on stage though as Super in her super outfit. If you watch really carefully, just as the lights go out, you see her go off stage and come back on, and that's her body double that was just playing Queen Serenity is now in that, so that she can go off stage and turn into Eternal Sailor Moon while everybody else is doing their big dance thing like they normally do. And they give their power to Sailor Moon to transform into her Eternal form, which looks amazing, by the way. And then so everything goes dark for a second to allow for the body double to go off stage, and then Hotaru Moon comes on, and she looks fantastic, and she uses Starlight Honeymoon Therapy Kiss, and Nehadenia thinks she's going to be destroyed, but really she's redeemed, kind of, because she's like, I feel this light inside of me. I always thought that I was like this, I only had darkness inside of me, which is why I envied you, or I hated you, and I was jealous, and blah, 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 blah. And then she dies, because, just like she mentioned earlier, the light kills the dark. But Tuxedo Mask is like, well, actually, it's because she's lived for thousands of years. This is the natural order of things, and it was really jarring in some ways. So, again, redeem, released, but then she kind of dies a natural death. And then Helios has to go back to Elysian, and then Chibi Moon goes forward, and she's like, oh, I need to see you again. And they're like, well, we'll meet again, don't worry. And then you see the Flying Pegasus kind of going off, and it's an animated version of it. It's not a laser show, but it's just kind of like doing the same kind of movement as the original laser show Pegasus did back in 95, 96. But again, it's a white Pegasus animated GIF, maybe. So everyone talks about how they have a star inside, because Tuxedo Mask is like, oh, you know, I feel like there's a birth of a star inside of me, which leads up to Sailor Stars and the Star Seeds. And then I Know Starshine is performed, which leads into the Curtain Call instrumental, where they all are introduced, and then they do the full version of Music of the Spheres, and then the Tuxedo come in appearance theme, so that Yuga Yamato can show off as usual, and then they have Moonlight Densetsu, of course, and that is the end of that one. So, overall, I was pretty happy with it. There's a lot of jarring inconsistencies, there's a lot of things that allude to Sailor Stars, which is really neat. There's a lot of similarities to the previous musicals. The actresses themselves are pretty good. Nehadenia's voice is definitely the most powerful of the entire group. It was nice having the Outers back, seeing them. They're really, really strong too. I've always loved the actress playing Sailor Pluto. She's wonderful. I love the Uranus and Neptune. I love how elegant the Neptune actress, I forget her name, but she pulls her off so well. Perfect Michiru. And Hotaru was pretty good too, the new Sailor Saturn. The new inners are, like I said, there's going to be some work that needs to be done a little bit, but I really like the new Sailor Moon. I think she's actually got a strong singing voice, but her emotions are just weird. Like I said, she's like, oh no. And she's like, hi everybody, how's it going? Oh no, they're dying. Oh, I'm so sad. But you can't tell because it looks the same. I don't know. I'm excited for Sailor Stars. I can't wait for it to be subtitled, and there's still no official news yet that I've heard of that Yuga Yamato is retiring as Tuxedo Command, and I'm sure that would be plastered all over everywhere just because she is so well loved and popular. So maybe they will continue on with the musicals, or maybe they're just doing it because we might get that North American release. Who knows? But that's it. This video is really, really long. Let me know what you guys thought of Amour Eternal in the comments below. And if you agree or disagree and what you think and so on. And I will see you again in another video. じゃまたねみんな。